Always ready for you. I'm very organized. Usually I'm organized. Okay? So, you got all this written down, Paris? Fine. After all that, people are just looking at me. Alright. So, as I told you, sometimes we won't be in the notebook, in the ripped out pages, and we're not now. A lot of days, our notes are going to be on regular paper. Anytime we do something with graphing, like today, for the homework, I will give you the graph paper you will need, or it'll already be on the worksheet. So your homework, A9, I'll give to you when we're done doing 2 examples here, already has the graphs on it, okay? But for day-to-day notes, you might need paper. So have paper, please. And Kirk. Yes, Aaron and Kirk. Okay? All right. So we are going to graph absolute value equations. It's basically putting 2 lines together on one graph, okay? It looks like it might be hard. It's not at all, okay? This is not difficult at all, right? So this is the form of an absolute value function. So here's our absolute value symbols. And A makes a graph stretch or compress. It makes it either fatter or skinnier, for lack of a better way of putting it. And we'll see that in a second. A vertex is the center of it. Let me just tell you, these graphs look like V's. They're going to look like a V. So the vertex is the lowest point, or if it opens down, it'll be the highest point. And we get that from these 2 numbers, H and K. That's an ordered pair that will make that point. Okay? Now, one thing I want you guys to notice that you're going to see a lot, and you have in your past math classes, anytime you have a minus in front of a variable, it means opposite. Okay? So when we get to our first example, if you just look ahead, that -2 is actually a +2 when we pull it out. Okay, so I'll come back to that when we do an example. And here's the steps that we go through to graph the steps. We start by finding the vertex. And there's no math involved in that. There's no like formula or anything. It's just looking at you, I like to say. It's the H and the K that comes right out of the equation. You just have to know how to find it. Okay? The second step is to make an XY chart. And I'm going to give you the details on how to do that in just a second. And then I'm just going to call it finish the graph. And I'll explain what that means in a second. So it's really 3 easy steps, really. The second step is where you have a little bit of math to do, some arithmetic. You have to plug numbers in and get a number to come out of that. But other than that, it's really, really simple. Okay? So here is our first example. F of x just means y equals x minus 2, the absolute value, plus 1. So the first step is to find the vertex. And the vertex, and I'm all about abbreviating, you can write out the whole word, would be H and K. Okay, so H is -2 in here, but because it's a negative, you actually change the sign when you pull it out. So if your H is negative, you make it positive. If H is positive, you make it negative. But because of the plus sign in the K, you don't change the sign. Robbie, you're not on your phone, right? Make sure it's put away. Looks like you're hiding behind your backpack. Okay, so that's the vertex. Okay, we did step 1. Step 1's done. That's the vertex. Okay, the second step is to make an XY chart. Very simple XY chart. Okay, the truth is you can pick any 2 numbers you want in the whole universe other than 2. Okay, but to make this the easiest graph that you can, pick 2 numbers that are both either to the left of this value or to the right. So don't draw this. Let me just show you what I mean. On the x-axis, we're at 2, right? This is 2. Just pretend that's 2. So you would either pick like 1 and 0, or you would pick, I'm sorry, I know, do I not know number lines? Let me do that better. So here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, okay? So there's your number line. Here's where our vertex is starting. At x, you're either going to pick 3 and 4 or 1 and 0. It matters not at all, So you pick two values of x, not one on either side, but two on one of their sides. It doesn't matter, okay? So we already used the 2. Maybe I'm going to use 0 and 1. Could I have written in a different order? 1 and 0. Doesn't matter. Could I have used 3 and 4? Yep. Or 4 and 3? Yes. So you would either pick these two or those two. It doesn't matter, and you're going to see why in a second. What we need, then, is the y values. Don't forget, f of x is the same as y. So just fancy, we know it means y. Anybody have an idea what we're going to do to find y? Come on. If I know x is 0, what do you think I'm going to do to find y? Marcus, sorry, what did you say? So but tell me what would be the actions I would do? Plug it in, guys. If I know x, I can put x right here and simplify and get y. So I'm going to just find some workspace off to the side. And when you look at my key later, you'll see I just kind of wrote off to the side. And I wish I hadn't done that there. So I have y equals, I'm just going to plug a 0 in for x and simplify it. Really, really simple, guys. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Okay, plus 1. And absolute value means always positive. So the absolute value of negative 2 is 2, and 2 plus 1 is 3. I'm going to do the same thing with the 1. And I'm not. This is just quick math. You don't have to write out y equals. I'm going to plug 1 in. So it's 1 plus 2. Sorry. 1 minus 2 plus 1. So I'm just plugging now the 1 in there. I plugged the 0 in and got 3. I'm plugging 1 in and I get 2. Now I'm ready to do the entire graph. Just that much work. I'm going to plot these 3 points that I just found. And if you're not using graph paper, don't worry. You will on the homework, so it'll look a lot better when you do the homework. But for now, just sketch it, okay? So just estimate where those points are. So the vertex is at 2, 1, so 2, and then up 1. Sometimes I like to make the vertex an x, but it's not required, okay? 0, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. They should be in a line if you did the math right. Guess what? That's the half of your graph. Goes right through them, and the arrow goes up forever. So how do I find the other side? Well, there's something called an axis of symmetry, and I usually just say AOS after this, axis of symmetry, that goes right through the vertex. It's going to go right through it like this. So all I have to do to find my other points is just reflect across. So if I have a point to the left of the axis of symmetry, I'm also going to have one to the right there. And if I have a point 2 to the left, I'll have one 2 to the right. And it makes a perfect V, and that's the graph. So let's backtrack and just talk about why I did what I did. I picked two numbers on the same side, right? I picked either 0 and 1 or 3 and 4, so I could get one whole side, and then I could just find the other points just by doing that. And if you had chosen to pick 3 and 4, let me just show you something. You don't have to write this. Remember I said you could pick either one? Guess what 3 was? 1, 2, 3. It would have been 2, which is the same as the 1, 2. See, they're right across from each other. And then 4 would have had a 3. So, because, I'm sorry, 4 would have had, yeah, so right across from here. They're both exactly the same distance. That's why it doesn't matter which side you pick. All right, let's do another. Oh, wait, domain, range, and AOS. Guys, these are just like parabolas, except they're pointy instead of curvy. And the domain of all of our parabolas was all real numbers. Same thing here. Every single one of these, whether they open up or down, is going to be all real numbers, or you can write this. Remember, either one, you don't have to write both. They mean the same thing. So as we go up, we're going left and right forever. So you'll use every x value. And we're going to change a little bit how we do our range. I want you to do it like this. you start with what's the first range, the y value you're going to use would be 1. And then it goes up forever, so that's infinity. So from 1, right here, up forever. And we're going to put a bracket on the 1 because it's included, it's part of the graph. 1 is used and everything up forever. And we always use parentheses on our infinity symbols, always. That's called interval notation. I'm going to keep teaching it to you while we work on the lessons. You'll see it in the key. Notice how we write it. It's very easy once it clicks with you. The axis of symmetry is a vertical line that goes right through the vertex. Watch this. The axis of symmetry is always x equals, because vertical lines are x's, horizontal lines are y's. What x value is it going right through? 2. It's always the first number of your vertex, as it goes right through it. And that creates 2 equal sides of your graph forever. Symmetry, perfect left and right sides. Okay? Let's do one more. Let's do one that has an a value, because this one didn't. It didn't stretch it or shrink it. And you'll be able to see that when we have a number there, it changes how fat, how wide it is. Okay? Last one, and then we'll start the homework. So, let's do g of x equals negative 3. Let's put a negative in there. Why did I put an h? Oh my gosh, it's a 3. Ah, sorry, that's a 3. I apologize. Wouldn't have an h there. Okay, let's identify the pieces, okay? Vertex. Remember, that's your h. It's always in that spot. K is always in that spot. They're always in the same place. You don't have to be like, wait, did it move? No, never does. And remember, h is opposite. So since it's positive here, when I pull it out, it's negative. Okay, so that's this 3. And K, you don't change the sign. You don't change the sign. Okay? You're going to make an XY chart with 2 numbers in it only. 2. So think about the x-axis. If you can see it in your head, great. If you need to draw it, great. So let's put negative 3 right here. Think about what numbers are to the right of it and what numbers are to the left of it. You can pick either side. So you could either do negative 2 and negative 1, or negative 4 and negative 5. It doesn't matter. You're going to get the same numbers because they're equally distant on both sides of the vertex. So you pick what you want. It does not matter. The hardest part is plugging these values in and being careful with your signs and everything. So let me just do this a little bit slowly. So I'm going to plug negative 2 in. So negative 3, absolute value symbol, negative 2, plus 3, minus 2. So I just plugged in negative 2 right there. Question? Did I make a mistake? You sure? Don't be shy. No? Okay, I think I know what they're talking about. Don't forget, this negative or minus, whichever you want to call it, in front of the H means opposite. K has a plus, so it's not opposite. So when you pull the H out of the equation, it's the opposite sign of what it says. K is whatever the sign it says. So this was a positive 3, we put a negative 3. Since that's negative, it stays negative. Is that what you guys were kind of talking about? All right, now I'm plugging in. So I took my negative 2, and I put it right there. Negative 2 plus 3 equals 1. The absolute value of 1 is 1. Absolute value is always positive. So if it's positive now, it stays positive. And then you just multiply. You can just think of it as multiplication there. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Minus 2 equals negative 5. So you can see how you could make some mistakes in there, right? You just have to be careful with your signs. That's the worst part if there's a bad part. Okay, now we have to plug negative 1 in. Same exact steps, negative 3, absolute value, negative 1 plus 3, minus 2. Yep. All right, this problem, the one before, here. Okay, So I plug the negative 2 in there, right? And I have negative 3 absolute value symbols, negative 2 plus 3, right? So you understand how I plugged in? Okay, so what's your question? I'm sorry, I must have missed your question. Sorry. It's not plus, it's times. You have to think of these as like parentheses, okay? So it's negative 3 times whatever you get in there. So it's negative 3 times 1 is negative 3, okay? I see what you're saying. Okay, absolute value first. Do that first. So negative 1 plus 3 is 2. And Matthew, yeah, so then we multiply these. Okay, so negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Minus 2 is negative 8. Okay, so this one was harder. It had a lot of negatives in it. We have to be okay with working with negatives. You have calculators? Okay, so I now have my 3 points. There's a lot going on this paper. Let me highlight them for you. Point, point, point. We're going to put those on a graph. So it looks like we're over to the left and down, right? Negative, 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 negative. So I'm going to kind of draw my graph, just kind of highlighting that area, because I'm not using the other quadrants anyway. And remember, you're just sketching these right now. So my vertex is negative 3 to left 3, down 2. And I like to put an X, not required. So vertex done. Then negative 2, so left 2, negative 5, down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And negative 1, negative 8. So left 1, down 8. And you can see it makes a line, actually like a ray, right? Because it's an endpoint. And now, really easy to get the other half of your V. Look at your axis of symmetry. It goes right down, right through the middle of your vertex, always. It's splitting it in half. Then you can easily just flip over that axis of symmetry to get your other points. This point where my pen is 1 to the right, so I'm going to put 1 to the left. This point is 2 to the right, I'm going to put another 1 to the left. And you could keep going, but that's enough points for us. And it will make a perfect V. Okay? Domain, range, axis of symmetry. What's the domain of all absolute value functions? All real numbers. Write it either way that we've learned, doesn't matter. So this one's tricky. Pay attention. This is tricky. We know that I think we know, we're at negative 2, right? And we go down forever. That's what our range is. But how you write it is really important. We read a book left to right. We read a sentence left to right. We spell out a word left to right. We read graphs left to right, which is least to greatest. But since we're talking about range, we're really talking about up and down. Where is the least numbers on the y-axis? Are they up or are they down?
Down.
Down. The numbers down are smaller than the numbers up. Right? These are negatives. Okay? So we have to start from the bottom and go up. So watch. That means negative infinity to negative 2. It's backwards when it opens up, because we read smallest to biggest. So we know these arrows point down forever. So we're saying, okay, all those numbers until we get to negative 2. That's the last y value we'll use. Parentheses around infinity, brackets around the other number. Okay? So this is tricky, so be careful. But you'll see it on my key. Okay? I'm going to do several with you. Guys, you have to know that you cannot do it. Okay? I'm not going to have it. You can do it. All right. Start with me, and then I'll tell you what ones you're going to do. I wasn't able, guys, look, I was not able to put the assignment number at the top, so please do that. A9, okay? I wasn't able to print it on there. Notice I hole punched it for you. Shh, it'll go right back in your notebook after yesterday's stuff. Okay, so let's start, and then I'll give you what ones I want you to do. I don't know yet. All right, so we need a vertex, okay? Let's start with that. The vertex is that ordered pair, H and K. And remember, on the H, you always change the sign. And on the K, we don't. Okay? So get that in your brain. It's a common mistake. If your vertex is wrong, then the points you pick are going to be wrong. Then the whole graph is wrong. So it's kind of a domino effect. So you always do the opposite on this one, but not the opposite on that one. Okay? Now we make a table of values. We only need 2 numbers. That's it. Okay? You can either pick 2 numbers to the right of 2 or left of 2. I'm going to use 1 and 0. You could use 3 and 4. It doesn't matter, but pick your 2 that you want to use. Okay? Find some workspace and plug in. So let's do it right underneath here. So I'm going to go up into the equation, and I'm going to plug in for x. So that's absolute value of 1 minus 2, in the symbols, minus 2. So in this one, there's no number to multiply by out in front, right? There's no a value. So that's 1 minus 2 is negative 1, right? And the absolute value of negative 1 is 1. Absolute value means distance from 0, and distance is always positive. So it's not opposite sign. It's always positive. And of course, you can use your calculator to help you with that math if you need it. All right, so I plugged 1 in. Now I'm putting 0 in. So 0 minus 2 is negative 2. The absolute value of negative 2 is 2, and 2 minus 2 is 0. We're ready to graph. So 2, negative 2 is my vertex. To the right 2, down 2. There's my vertex. I will have a point at 1, negative 1, right? That's that guy. And 0, 0. You can see the left side of your V. You can make your AOS go right down the middle, and that helps you with your other points. And it should make a perfectly symmetrical V. And you can connect them, and it goes up forever and to the right to forever, and then the same thing on the left-hand side, and there's your graph. Domain, range, AOS. We talked about it. Domain is always going to be all real numbers, negative infinity to infinity. Remember, range is always least to greatest. The smallest number we use is negative 2. That's the smallest y value. Remember, ranges are y values. And it goes up to infinity forever. Bracket on the number, parentheses on infinity symbols. And lastly, your AOS always starts with x. It's not going to be y. It's x because it's a vertical line. And it always goes right through the vertex, which is at 2. Okay. Question on the first one? I'm going to do more with you. I'm going to have you do 1 through 5, okay? 1 through 5. I'm going to do number 2 with you, though. Guys, write it 1 through 5. 1 through 5. There's a lot more than that. I'm only assigning 5. People that aren't paying attention will might be more. That's fine. Okay. So H and K, we need our vertex. We need our vertex. So what is H in this problem? 0. Yeah. If there's no number to the right of it, 0. 0 is a number on the graph. That's okay. And then K, that number all the way to the right. So that's the same as if I wrote it like this, x plus 0 plus 1. It just looks weird. We don't put the 0 inside. Okay? So if there's no number there, it's just 0. Okay, so we've got that. We need 2 numbers to the right or the left of that x value. And I like working with positive numbers, so I'm going to use 1 and 2. Or you could have used -1 and -2, right? 2 numbers to the right or left. Plug them in. Oops. Absolute value of 1. Absolute value of 2. Now, just common mistake I've seen students make is they think that means -2. The absolute value, whatever happens in the parentheses, if there's work to do, whatever happens in the bracket, absolute value symbols, you do that work, but whatever comes out has to be positive. So if it was positive, it's staying positive. That's it. We have everything we need. So our vertex is at 0, 1. So that's that guy. To the right 1, up 2. Right 2, up 3. We know there's an axis of symmetry that goes right through the vertex, which helps us graph the other side of our V. See if you can fill that in. Try it. Check it. See if you got it right. Question on that? Okay. I will put up the key. 1 through 5. I just did the first 2 with you. Showed all the work. There's 3 and 4, and I'll put 5 up in a sec. Yeah. Yeah. I'll put 5 up. I know a lot of you are. Let's see. Yeah.
So, what page your idea? You finished
You gotta work.
I still win. I just feel yeah, try not to. I try not to. It gets a little. I try not to. I'll wear the shirt.
That's me on my shirt this week. I had a big butter. It wasn't like I could just wipe it out. So I just look like a slop tape. It's making me crazy. And I just cut my hair. My hair used to cover it.
I have what? My war
Bye. Thanks, you too. Bye. Mhm.